Okay, so buenas tardes, everybody. Hola, welcome. It's kind of like an honor to be here today, introducing these three amazing people. I'm gonna start with Carolina. Carolina, we all see your name, but if you can wave, Carolina just graduated from Brooklyn College, so please congratulate her. She's a major in English and a minor in comparative literature. Her goal, and she's going to do it, she's taking a break, but she's going to pursue a PhD in comparative literature, and her goal is to be a professor. Sharifa, Sharifa, say hi. Sharifa Thompson is also a recent graduate from Brooklyn College, where she majored in psychology and minor in criminal justice. She spent this past summer as a tutor for CUNY tutor corps and is excited to start her master's program also at Brooklyn College in mental health counseling this fall semester. So I'm sure that you're going to be great, Sharifa. And in third place, we have Mahir Sadad. Hi, Mahir. He's a Macaulay honors student at Queen's College, majoring in political science. His favorite family quote is, "From cradle to grave, we are all scholars." Through his education, Mahir aspires to explore the intersection of justice, society, and technology. And his spare time, Mahir can be found testing out a baking project or dabbling in art. He's really into design, he just told me. So any questions about that, I'm sure that Mahir will be more than happy to answer. Carolina, Sharifa, Mahir, muchísimas gracias. Thank you so much for being here. We cannot wait to learn from your experience as a CUNY student. I am Inés Vañó García. I'm a TLC fellow who is gonna be hopefully really quiet in this panel, but asking you like really good questions, interesting questions, and facilitating the questions from the audience so we can hear from you. And I'm gonna start by doing that with the first question. Also reminding the participants that please feel free at any time to ask any questions at the Q&A or in the chat. We have a lot of fellows from the TLC who are gonna be able to help me facilitating the questions and the conversation in the chat. And I'm gonna start with you, Carolina. Think about any course that you took as an undergrad student in which you feel that you really learn a lot. Think about that specific course, hopefully more than one courses. What do you think that made that course so effective?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. It's my pleasure to share with you. So I took a Caribbean literature course a couple of semesters ago, and I'm from the Caribbean. I'm from the Dominican Republic, and it was super surprising for me to learn so
Carolina, we are losing you. If you can switch off, turn off your camera, maybe. Sharifa, Mahir, can you hear me? Yeah, Sharifa, do you want to go and we'll wait?
Can you hear me now?
Carolina, yes, go ahead.
It seems that I'm back. I'm so sorry about that. I'm having internet issues.
No problem at all.
So like I was saying, I was taking this Caribbean literature course a couple of semesters ago, and I'm from the Caribbean, and I learned so many things from the Caribbean in that course, and I was surprised about that. So one of the reasons why I learned that was because we had different pieces of literature that we had to read, but in the time that we had in the class, we discussed them and also shared our experiences. So it wasn't only just focusing on the material, but the experiences of the students and the professor. And that way we can learn so many things like the Great Caribbean or that Caribbean mythology exists and things like that. And that's it.
Thank you, Karina. Sharifa, you want to add something?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have a specific course, but I am biased towards psychology and all psychology courses as a psychology major. And I really enjoy them because they were very informative and the professors were very lively when they taught the classes. You know, psychology is a very interesting field of interest. And it's very applicable to the real world. You know, we're always dealing with people and their minds and how they behave and how they think. And most of the times the professors would actually use like their real world experience as therapists and psychologists in the field. And it was great to kind of see how, you know, how, for example, a textbook disorder plays out in real life. So I really appreciated when the professors use their real life experience to just liven the discussion around the topics discussed in class. So, yeah.
Thank you, Sharifa. Mahir, I want to give you the opportunity to add anything you want to this question.
I think I'm going to add an unconventional choice. It would have to be my Accounting 101 course. I know anyone in here, they hear Accounting 101 and they're like, all right, I'm going to take a nap. But honestly, I think that it was a very transformative experience for me. And I think it has to do particularly with my professor. Something that really stood out to me in that class compared to like the econ classes I was taking, for example, is my professor, she really took the time to make the course personable to us. So it's like, let's say if we were covering something that came to my mind, general ledgers, like she would make us like pick things that were relevant to our own lives for practice. And like she really humanized the course for us. I think honestly and surprisingly, that was the course that really stuck out to me.
I'm so excited that you bring like that humanizing aspect of it, because I know that we have been talking a lot in our seminars about that with the new grad students that are going to be teaching this fall. And it also was a key an issue that was brought up on Tuesday with our faculty panel. So I'm going to go with the next question, and I know that all of you said that you really wanted to make sure to answer this question because it's really important. So I'm really excited to hear all of you. And it's about the advice that you would offer new instructors, so all our audience here, about to teach their first CUNY class. What should they know about you? What should they know about students within the CUNY system? And Sharifa, this time you can start.
Yes, I think my advice would be very simple, and it would be just to be very present and to be enthusiastic about what you're teaching. I think students can pick up on the energy. They can see like when you just don't want to be here, when you're just doing it just for the paycheck probably. But like when you really enjoy what you're doing, it comes off and it's received with more energy. And, you know, it makes the classroom learning experience just way better. Also, just to be present, you know, we're all very busy nowadays, but just when it comes to just teaching, just be very present with students. Give up your time and give up your energy to them, and they would definitely appreciate it.
Carolina, you can jump in whenever you want.
Definitely. So don't be afraid of silence. It will come to a time that, yeah, that you ask a question and nobody answers it. And it happens pretty often, especially over Zoom. So you just ask another question or answer your own question and try to get the conversation started by, just keep on going, because it will happen at some point. And it's not like you are doing something wrong. It's just that sometimes students don't know how to answer the specific question, or they are afraid to jump in, because you will be teaching your first CUNY course, right? And you probably will be a bit nervous, but your positions are different. Imagine being nervous as a student. You're afraid to talk. You don't really have to do it, if that makes sense. But you as a professor have to do it, because who else will do it, right? So, just understand that just as you're nervous, they are nervous too. And that is totally normal, that everything will be okay. And once the conversation gets started, everything will flow. So you just have to just put a little of effort just to get that started, but everything will go well.
Here, all yours.
I think what I would say, well, first and foremost, to anyone that's teaching new CUNY classes, like my heartfelt congratulations to you. It's not easy being an educator, but what you should really take in pride in is that you are helping future generations that are going to run this city and run this country. And amen to that. What I would say my most important advice to professors is be nerdy, be passionate, be absolutely crazy about what you love teaching. If you became a professor, you became someone who wanted to teach something you're passionate about, and you put in all of your effort, you put in hours and hours, days and days of dedication, and you made so many sacrifices, you should wear that, like, you should wear those sacrifices that you made, and also like really lean into it. Like, I know that sometimes in conversations, like I have a friend who always loves talking about chemistry. That will unfortunately put me to sleep, but I still encourage him to be a passionate chem nerd. If you are a professor that's like that really loves one particular like piece of, like, let's say if you're really into Mark Twain, probably mispronouncing it, like lean into your excitement, because excitement, I think, this might be kind of a gross example, it's contagious like sneezes. Probably shouldn't say that in the current climate that we live in, but excitement is extremely contagious. And if you are going to be if you're going to show that sort of like zest for life in what you do, then your students are slowly also going to start embracing and modeling the same sort of excitement.
Thank you all of you for those like great pieces of advice. I'm gonna take the opportunity to kind of like bring the first question from one of our participants, because I think that we can relate to this question to the conversation that we're having. And Priyanka would like to know if there are if you notice differences between adjunct instructors. I don't know if you know what adjuncts are, but probably if you are here and with all your experience within the CUNY system, between adjunct instructors and full professors. And what do you like and dislike about each type? If there is a difference there, please feel free to jump in. Any of you who wants to start?
I think I'll just, this is my thing. Like, I think that adjunct professors, they do not get enough credit that they deserve, period. I think in my personal experience, some of the most profound professors in some of my classes have been adjuncts, and it often happens that they also happen to be young and in that position. And I really think that, unfortunately, for some of these educators, they're being done a disservice because they aren't often, like some of my professors, the energy that they put into those classes, I feel like they are unfortunately unfairly compensated. But I feel like that might be a different discussion for another day. But in my personal experience, what I've found is adjuncts, for some reason, are often more approachable. For some reason, they're really the, like, for a lack of, like, this is just my most simplest way to explain, I would feel more comfortable asking an adjunct professor a stupid question rather than a tenured professor, because I think that often with some of the tenured professors, they happen to be a little bit older. So there's a little bit of disconnect between, I don't know, I guess my Gen Z culture and what maybe like, I don't know, upper millennial and over culture. I find that often adjuncts just in general happen to be more reachable.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like adjunct professors have yet to have been burdened by bureaucracy of working within the school system. You know, they're very lively. They're still kind of like, you know, fresh out of the water type of, you know, energy. They're also tend to be more creative. And like Mahir said, like they seem to be more reachable because there seems to be less of a power dynamic between them and us. I don't feel as though, you know, it's like, oh, this person has seniority. I'm kind of like, I'm kind of scared to ask a question. Maybe they'll judge me because they've been teaching for like years, decades, and you know, they may look down on me because I'm just a student. But with adjuncts, it's like, hey, they're just super cool. And I've actually had a few of them who say on the first day of school, like, hey, just call me Matt. We're on a first name basis. And of course, I never do that because I'm just like, that's weird. Professor Matt for me, but like, they're more open. They're like the cool parents of the group, basically.
You guys said it almost all, but I would like to also add that I feel adjunct professors have a different approach in terms of learning. and teaching. So for example, I took many classes with adjunct professors, and I noticed how I was able to learn things that probably with a full professor I wouldn't have learned, just because the adjunct professor was able to like use these different types of teaching and try new things and just change these books that we have been reading since high school, even though I didn't do high school here, but you know what I mean. Just try different things, be open to just give you, for example, an overview course that is actually an overview and things like that. But definitely they don't receive enough credit. And I think that the age really matters in terms of the connection and also the excitement, just following the same thread that we were doing before. Since they are new and they are teaching these courses and trying to prove that they deserve to get to a full position, they put like this 100% to their students, and they're more reachable, and they support them even more than what a full professor would do. But just for the sake of protecting full professors, because I feel a bit guilty, I think that is because they are not as busy as full professors are. Just saying.
Thank you so much, Sharifa, Carolina, Mahir, again, for sharing that all that knowledge and experience with us. I think like some of you already have started like touching upon like specific assignments that a professor did or that you like or that were creative, experiential. So if you can think about one assignment, we don't have more time, I'm sure that there is more than one, but one assignment from any courses, even accounting, Mahir, that you especially enjoyed and why, even if it's really surprising as an accounting class. I think that that's kind of like the experiences that we wanna kind of like know more about it. Thank you. Any one of you, Mahir.
Sure.
Exactly, thank you.
First. I think that accounting often gets, at least in my experience, I've seen it being lumped under the broad field of STEM. And I mean, I could be wrong in my assumption too, but what I've noticed is that, actually, let me first start off with my favorite assignment from that same exact class, actually. So around that time, the pandemic hit, and just there was so much uncertainty going on. And what I heard is some of the other professors, they were still trying to stick to the old tried and true method of exams for their finals. But my professor chose to do something differently. And I think that also fundamentally affected the way that I myself learn, is instead of providing us an exam where we're just answering questions and concepts that we've covered, she assigned us projects where we would basically be mini accountants for our own business of choice. And the goal was to try to, even if you can't like implement everything from class, you should do a thorough job of showing like, hey, look, I finished this class and I know what I'm doing. And I honestly found that, I mean, first, it's much more engaging than sitting there trying to do several multiple choices with the professors, just, bearing down on your neck. I found it really helped my brain sort of exercise creativity in something that I thought, couldn't be anything further from creative. And I just really hope that I come across more professors and more educators in the field of STEM, or in traditionally like fields that seem very rigid and straightforward. I really hope that some of those professors and educators, and some of you here who might be in those fields, I hope you're able to incorporate, I'm just going to reuse the word that I said, like projects that are more humanized. I think that just speaking in general, besides that accounting class, in other classes where I've had to have, all right, these are the concepts that you learned, now exercise them in a mock real world situation, I actually ended up remembering way, way more things than compared to, let's say, whatever was in the gray blur that was my chemistry exam from freshman year.
Thank you, Mahir, so much. Sharifa, please feel free to share with us any type of assignment.
Okay, so like Carolina said, I love projects. I prefer them over like tests and stuff. And so one of the classes I took in my last year of college, we had an assignment in which we had to create a social media campaign centered around an issue that was political, social, and I believe economic. And like it was so stressful, but it was so like enriching. Like I really enjoyed it because I was able to kind of create a campaign around mental health issues and the health disparities within Black communities. And I was able to do a lot of research about, just poverty in certain areas in New York, and just thinking about, how to actually implement the social media campaign. Who would I market it to? Would I use Facebook, Instagram? And it just felt so realistic that like I felt as though I was actually doing something meaningful. It didn't seem like busy work. And so I really enjoy courses that feel as though they can be applicable to the real world. And they can actually be translated into things that can be done in real life.
Thank you, Sharifa. Carolina.
All right. So I took a course that was connected with Caribbean literature, but I don't remember the exact name. The thing is that we went to Museo del Barrio in Manhattan, and the point was to just pick one of the exhibitions that they had in this museum and describe, what we felt about it, if we could connect it with our like different origins, if that makes sense, or anything that can be connected to that. And while doing that assignment, which was a group assignment, let me mention that, I was able to connect with other people in my class, which was a bit difficult for me back then. And, you learn about something that you decide, something that you can choose, that is not like you have to read this book and then tell me about this book. You have the option there. And I really think that giving students the option to learn about something that they like, that they are invested in, is the best way to go, because it will definitely, be like in full attention to that assignment, if that makes any sense at all, just because they have some sort of freedom in terms of what they are learning, and not only following a curriculum. And at the end of the day, you are following the curriculum, but at least you have a choice there.
Thank you so much, Carolina. I'm gonna follow up this question about one assignment, one project, and the challenges that we face when everything shifts to distance learning. I know that at that point, 3 of you were undergrads in college, and Mahir already made this connection. So Carolina, I'm gonna go back to you and ask you, how did the shift to distance learning impact your experience this past year, I guess, or this past year and a half? I don't know exactly how to time that, but if you can tell us a little bit more about that, since most of our audience, most of our graduate students are going to be teaching in an online mode for the first time as a teachers, and also like in hybrid modes, whatever that means.
So it has been so long that we don't even know how to time it, right? It has been a year and a half or a bit more. And for me, at least, the change was a bit dramatic, just because I like in-person learning. I like the idea of being able to look at professors at the eyes and see my peers there, and feel like I'm in this college environment where I'm encouraged to learn, to like go to the library and things like that. And then being at home, where you are surrounded by all sorts of distractions, where you are in front of a computer, where you have to be within a little square, which I find that is super dehumanizing if you think about it. It's a whole different thing, and you feel alone. You feel isolated, and not because you want to, you have to, so I think that my learning experience at the beginning was a little rough, but then I was able to like incorporate little things to my routine, and be able to like said, oh, from 3 to 4 I'll be reading this book, from 4 to 5 I'll be writing about this, just organizing my schedule a little bit in terms of being productive, because it's really hard to be productive at home sometimes, not for everybody, but for most of us it can be. So another thing that I can add to that is that I got a lot of help from my professors, and I couldn't stop thanking them about how supportive they were. Like they were like, if you need more time with this, you can definitely reach out. They were very approachable. And I think that being approachable is something that is key in terms of distance learning, just because all students are different. You know, CUNY is a synonym of diversity, and students might be parents, students might work for full time, and sometimes it's not that they don't want to do the assignments, it's that they can't. So having a person who's supportive, who's there, who's you know, encouraging you to learn is really something that students appreciate.
Mahir, anything you want to add to Carolina's response?
I think what I will add is actually speaking about what Carolina was mentioning before. I think that one silver lining of this pandemic is you're going to have some students that come back in person and you're going to be blown away at how responsible they are with managing their time. Because I think, like Carolina, you were mentioning, like this pandemic was kind of like the shock that I think that a lot of people sort of needed, in like it helped them. Of course, I'm not saying that this pandemic was completely positive, because we did experience horrendous loss of human life and everything. But I think for some people, this sort of staying at home, remote learning was sort of a reset. Like, oh, how should I myself try to become a better learner? But what I think that I will mention is, I'll give you 3 examples of 3 different classes that I took over the pandemic. One was an anthro class, 2 of them were political science classes. In the anthropology class, our professor he realized that, you know, we were having the issue of like, there isn't enough engagement between students. And so he really encouraged us to create group chats. He really encouraged us to have study sessions together. And I am surprised to say, I don't think I've ever seen anywhere else. So the class had 120 kids. And I'm pretty sure by the end of the class, I knew at least 90 of them on a first name basis. And I had seen 90 of them. And it was really amazing. Like, we all sort of bonded over the fact that we were struggling together in the pandemic. And the professor also at the same time, he was providing a lot of generosity. He was providing alternate assignments. But what I think was an important takeaway is he was encouraging students to connect with each other through whatever means necessary. The second political science class, this is when I'm taking both of these political science classes actually at the same time. For one of them, we have several papers due. I think there were 4 papers due in total. And during the first paper, or around that time, like, a lot of people were having issues with, they lost family members. And this is where the idea of like, some students aren't able to do assignments because they need time to grieve. And this professor, when someone messaged him like, hey, maybe you should have a looser deadline for your paper, he started laughing and he said, I can't be responsible for all of the grandparents dropping like flies. And he started laughing. And I think I was just blown away. And I also experienced my own loss with my uncle passing at that situation. And it was just a very, very difficult situation. And towards the end of the class, I think the professor realized that half of the students are basically going to fail because they just unfortunately weren't able to do the coursework. And then he started being very, very cryptic about he loosened up the deadlines, but he was very cryptic. And then the other example that I have from another political science class, this professor said, you have until the end of the semester to submit whatever assignment that I ask you. I'm not going to ask you about what kind of emergency you had, just let me know and then submit it on time. And honestly, that class, considering that it was a like 200 level class, which in Queens College is more like an intermediate level, like by that point you should have a couple of experiences with a couple of 100 level classes under your belt. I was astonished that that class was just so easy. It was easy because we had that breathing room. And in our group chats, what I also noticed is people were genuinely committed to finishing. Like, if people had struggles with deadlines, they were still able to make up. And we had so many, at the end of the semester for that class, we had so many people celebrating all of their wonderful accomplishments. And not a single person was needed to mention that they unfortunately didn't pass the class. Everyone thrived. And so I'm not going to be picking out any lessons. I know that I've been talking for a long time. I'm sure you can deduce what I mean from my 3 examples. Okay,
Thank you, Mahir, so much for your honesty, first of all, and for sharing all that with us. I want to make sure that Sharifa has the space to add anything if she wants to.
Yes, I just want to say that I think it's important to be intentional. For me, at least on the student side, I had to be more intentional when it came to making social connections. I always talk to my friends about making semester friends when we were in person, you know, friends that you only have for like a semester and then afterwards, yeah, just complete strangers afterwards. But online, it is a bit harder because everyone's just, you know, shuffling around, back-to-back classes online. And so it's a lot of Zoom fatigue as well. So I would just say be intentional, and for teachers and educators to also be intentional with how you spend your time. I had a professor who I thoroughly enjoyed his class, but every time when like the class would end like around 3:15, at 3:15 and like 5 seconds, he was off the Zoom, he was gone. And I was just like, wow, like I know he's busy, but like I would just really appreciate if you would just take an extra 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just to kind of talk to us and say, how are you guys doing? Any questions? You know, just something. And so I would just say to be intentional with how you spend your time and how you interact with the students.
Thank you so much also, Sharifa. I'm gonna like a kind of like a related question, building up on your experience with distance learning in a more general way, any kind of teaching, any kind of learning. What is something that you wish professors did more in the classroom, online classroom, face-to-face classroom, or did less? Because sometimes we do too much of one thing and there is no need for that. Mahir, I know that you talk a lot, but I'm gonna give you the space to respond first.
Sure, thank you so much. I think what professors can do, and even when we go back to in-person learning, is be open to generosity. Be generous with your students and they're going to be generous with you. I think that it may be a little bit of a double-edged sword with this advice where, you know, like I'm not telling every person here to be like, oh, give your students until the end of the semester to turn in all of their assignments and you should suffer and struggle. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that this pandemic, when we go back to classes this starting fall, just be mindful of the fact that some people will be like, people have sort of their, you know, skeletons in their closet, and people will be having their struggles, and you just have to remain understanding that unfortunately not everyone might be in the same shoe as you. Maybe even in your own personal life, you are facing some kind of tragedy or some kind of loss. And when I say that, when you are kind and open to your students, what you'll realize is they'll be generous to you. Like I had a teacher who needed a mental health break, and we completely understood her situation. And I think part of our open receptiveness to her taking off her mental health break came down to the fact that she said, like, if any of you are having any problems, like, you can turn off your video, you can turn off your mic and take a break. And so just, if there's one word that I'm going to say, or 2 words, it's be generous.
Thank you so much, Mahir. Carolina, your turn. I know that you had a lot of things you wanted to say in this question, so I'm just going to make sure that you have a lot of time to share with us.
Thank you. So one of the first things is to allow students to express themselves. I'm not saying that the classroom will become, you know, this gathering of friends catching up, no, but the point is to allow them to talk and sort of develop what they have learned, that it's not just them receiving, you know, that it's not a passive class, that they also have this moment for them to share their opinions, their experiences, their ideas about the topic that you are discussing. Because when you are talking about something and you're enthusiastic about it, enthusiasm can be a double-edged sword also. You know, you could be super excited about something and talk for hours about it, and then forget that other people might want to say something about that as well, right? So I think that that will be super important. Let me see what else. I think that also building the community, even though this is something that we touched already, but you know, creating like assignments that students can work in groups and things like that, like being a bit creative in terms of how you want students to do their assignments, I think is great as well. I know that online it's a bit tough, but you know, hopefully when we are back in person one day, you know, we'll be able to have these group assignments where students can gather and things like that. Let's be positive about that, because this way you can create this sort of familiarity within the classroom, and students help each other because they know each other, they have this connection, and probably it might not be only this semester friends, you know, it could become like a long-term friendship. So you are helping your students to develop the support network within the classroom that is not only yourself, it's their classmates as well. And also support your students. You know, some professors, they don't support students as much. You know, I think that if it's possible for a professor, it would be great to just mention, hey, if you need a letter of recommendation or something like that really inspires students to give even more, and you know, within the classroom, because they know that you are a resource that they could use, that they could approach in the future, that as opposed to a professor that never you know, offers this to students. So I think those things are really important. There's more probably, but you know, these are like the key things that I have to mention right now.
Sharifa, all you.
Yes, I really enjoy classes that are formatted or structured in a way in which it's like a class discussion. I do not like lectures at all. I've had professors literally read from the textbook, and I don't understand why. Because like, why? Like, why am I coming to class for you to read from the textbook? It doesn't really make sense. And so I really love open discussions. I love the professors are like, okay, what do you guys think? How would you guys navigate this topic? You know, they ask open-ended questions, and we're all able to kind of learn from each other, like Caroline was saying, in the classroom environment. So I would say to try to implement more discussions and not have it be structured too much like one person talking and just, you know, instructing the whole class.
I'm going to take this opportunity to build in what Sharifa was saying, because we have a question from Kai on the chat. And it's how do you imagine community and creativity in online classrooms? I know Sharifa said she hates lectures. Any experience that you want to share in one specific class and a specific assignment that you had this, now I'm going to say it, past year and a half in our online virtual Zoom classrooms? Any of you?
So I would say that it depends on the class, like what kind of class it is. It could be synchronous, it could be asynchronous, it could be a hybrid or whatever that is. And, you know, but I think one of the main things will be to create group chats, just because that's a way that, you know, we can communicate, that you could build this community, and people have like this space where they could simply talk about the class or anything. You know, they know that their comments there will be welcome, and that's really important, just to know that you have people that will read you, that will listen to you, that they are there, that you are not taking the class alone. You know, if you are in a synchronous class, it's a bit more difficult, just because you're not able to like see anyone else but the professor, if they upload a video, or you know. But also creating the chat, it's a good idea, and also encourage students to create their own videos. You know, I think that might help. I wouldn't suggest the idea of like suggest students to gather, because I know that right now we cannot do that, but at least, you know, there is some sort of communication, and at least you could upload your own video so they can know your face, and that you are not only a little square with your name, that you are a face, that you are a full person, if that makes any sense.
It does, Carolina. Mahir, Sharifa, do you have any other strategies that you want to share?
Yeah, I think I'll tackle the latter part of the question about navigating difficult conversations. A good place to start is just to be honest with what you know and what you don't know. If there's something that you're not sure about, just say, you know, hey, I'm not too familiar about this topic, about this concept, but I'm willing to learn more, or I'm willing to take more input from you all. I think we're all learning, you know. I don't expect my professors to know everything, you know. I know we're all learning, we're all growing. And so just being able to just openly admit that, you know, I don't know everything, and just be honest with what you know is a great place to start.
And just adding to some of the things that Sharifa said, when you say that you don't know, you're also in a way modeling behavior that is helpful for difficult conversation. So maybe the other piece of advice that I would suggest is lean into your own experiences when you were students in classrooms. Like what went well and what went wrong when you were having those difficult discussions. And I think that maybe, like I was just saying, like modeling behavior, I think is a very important act of, like, once you set that precedent, people have something to refer to, because we're all coming from different cultural backgrounds. Everyone has different understandings of, you know, just how certain things work. And the other thing that I was just going to say is, if you take a look at your course, I know that there are course restrictions for some teachers, some professors, where like, yeah, you have to have X amount of exams, or you have to have X amounts of assignments, but there are still ways that you can, like, you know, add in your supplemental things. Like I'll bring up another notoriously boring class from my college experience, my Econ 101 class. The professor was required to give us an exam, but you know, he wasn't required to give us like 3 exams. He was just required to give us an exam. So he decided for the midterm we would have our traditional exam, and then the final, he actually assigned us a project where we basically acted like financial analysts, and we had to assess, like, we had to pick our company and assess, like, okay, based on the principles that we learned, is this company going to thrive, or is this company going to collapse? And what I was thinking, something, I think the professor said it. Someone asked him how he came up with the essay prompt, and he said something about like, well, if I was a little kid, what would I want to do with the things that I learned? And maybe that could be productive advice for you. If you're looking at something, you're thinking, how can I bring in more creativity and more engagement? Maybe you might have to just ask a kid, or lean into your own experiences of being little kids.
Thank you so much. It's really hard sometimes to look for those spaces, to find those strategies, to implement these creative assignments, find our pedagogy. And it's also really hard to kind of like remember that we don't know anything, we don't know everything. And it's okay to say, I don't know. And, you know, kind of like build that community together with your students and have a discussion and learn from you guys, because probably sometimes, and at least in my case, my students know more than I do. So I'm always learning from them. We're gonna go through a topic that is always present in our seminar, in our discussions, in our conversation, and it's about assessment, because, you know, it's always there. So my question to three of you is, how do you think professors, instructors, educators should assess how much students learn in their classes? To your mind, what makes for a good exam, and I don't want to use this word, exam, I guess, or assessment? Mahir, I know that you wanted to answer this question, so I'm going to start with you, and then I'll make sure that Sharifa and Carolina have some space to answer or build up in your response.
I think what I would say is utilize feedback from your students. Because yes, tests and assessments, they sort of, if you give an exam and if whatever results you get from the exam, X% of people passed and XYZ happened, what I would tell those professors is just don't stop there. I know that CUNY has its own personal evaluations things that are going on, but some of the classes that really stood out to me was, like, for example, that anthropology class that I was talking about. That professor actually dedicated the entire second half of the last day of class to just, okay, I'm going to open up this panel, and everyone can just jump in, provide their feedback. And if you want to provide your feedback anonymously, I also created this form that I linked below, and I'd really appreciate if all of you filled that out. And I understand it can be very, very daunting, especially as a young educator, to ask people to give you feedback, because we all like hearing things about how good we did, and sometimes hearing things about how XYZ things might have not gone as well. It can be a little upsetting, but I really want to emphasize the fact that use your students for the feedback. I know that we all talked about individualism and providing students an outlet to express themselves. And what I would say is the more opportunities you provide students to be comfortable with speaking up, the more opportunities you're going to have to learn how to become a better educator. That's all.
Thank you, Mahir. Carolina?
So I would say that the most important thing is to know your audience. So, I know that it's difficult sometimes to just understand what the audience needs. Most of the people don't like this, but there are some people who like this. So it's difficult to just approach one or the other. But why not discussing it with the class? Like, this is something that you guys could, if you think about it, decide with together. But at the same time, I don't feel like I'm the person who tell you how you will grade your students. But one suggestion is that maybe tests are not the best option, even though it depends on what subject you're teaching. But just because tests, maybe what if that person is sick that day, or if they had a very difficult situation and their mind is somewhere else. A test alone is not enough for you to grade the student. I think that having assessments, having different kind of assignments, giving students an opportunity to express what they think, to show what they have learned for life and not only for a test, is key. Just because this way you will understand that it's not something that they will forget next semester, but something that will stick with them and that will help them to grow, because this is our learning experience. It's not only the test, it's not only the assignment, it's learning. That's the goal of taking any course, of going to college, right? So just doing the test might not be the best option. Let me see what else. I think the feedback, like Mahir was saying, is extremely important as well. I know that it's difficult sometimes just to ask, but why not? It's something that we can grow from, if that makes sense. And that if you think about it, your students can become your support network. Your students can tell you the things that have been super successful in the classroom, the things that have been a little bit challenging. It's something that will constantly evolve. So just sticking with one thing is not enough. I think that taking the opportunity to learn different approaches in terms of grading is key. It's not written in stone. Yeah.
Sharifa.
Yes, I always prefer open-ended questions over multiple choice questions, only because multiple choice questions seem to just be a test of recollection, like memory. How much can you remember in limited time span? But with open-ended questions, it's more so like, how can you use what you've learned to apply to this question? And so for example, I want to say the clinical psychology class I took in undergrad. Well, yeah. For the exam, we were given a case scenario, and we had to basically read it and figure out what type of therapeutic modality you would use to treat the client. And I thought that was such an innovative way of helping us kind of just, take what we've learned and apply it. And so I think just open-ended questions, projects are great ways to test what your students know in a way that isn't very, anxiety provoking and stressful for them.
Thank you for sharing all that. I'm gonna jump into and I ask one question that I have. Obviously, I didn't have time to type it on the chat. While I'm sure that other participants are thinking about some questions, but I would like to, because that's also like another issue that we discuss a lot in our groups, and we have some questions for the participants in the Summer Institute, is about technology, because everything is online now, and technology is an issue. Yes, we all know Zoom. Do we use Blackboard? I don't know if everybody here is familiar with CUNY Academic Commons, with platform. How many tools do we use in the classroom? Is it like 2 tools enough? Is 3 tools too much? I think again, there is not a right answer, but if you can kind of tell us about your experience also as an undergraduate student, and how did you feel with this, I'm gonna say, technology question, in kind of taking into account also accessibility and your experience as a student. Anyone, I'm gonna open it, so any one of you can go.
So in the classes that I've taken thus far, professors use one platform just because it could be a bit confusing, I believe, for students if they use different platforms. And they actually have said that, some of them. So, and I totally support that, just because some professors, for example, if they're using Blackboard, but they are also using Discord, but they're also using this thing or the other thing, it might become a bit of a chaos there, depending on the different, assignments and where to submit them and things like that. So stick to one platform that you prefer, that you feel comfortable with. I think that might be the best way to go, and that you think that your students will be comfortable with as well. Let me see what else. Yeah, I think that will be the best approach, just for the sake of avoiding the situation where your students are confused, and yourself, because that can happen as well.
Yeah, I agree. But I think I would say maybe one formal platform and one informal platform. So one formal platform being Zoom, where you can possibly record the lectures, because I think that's a lifesaver. Recording lectures is the best thing I think technology has given us. But also an informal platform where they can just chat you, maybe on Discord, where they don't feel the pressure to be like, hello, professor, just more relaxed and just a more open environment to feel comfortable to ask questions and whatever else is needed.
Yeah, I honestly am probably going to repeat some of the same advice that everyone has given already. But I think with many things in life, the idea of simplicity, the simpler it is, the better it's going to be. I think you just have to follow that to a T. And I really love Sharifa's idea of having the formal space versus the informal space. I also, Carolina, had this professor that used Google Classroom, Blackboard, Zoom, and there was another platform that I can't remember in there. The class was a hot mess. I somehow still did well with and I forgot. I didn't even know that we had, for example, there was a paper that we had in that class that we were supposed to do. Even the professor, God help her, but she also got confused in grading. And that's why I say the simpler it is, the better it is. And also to anyone here, if you think that you are not a tech wizard, if you think you're gonna have any troubles, don't be shy, ask your students for help. And also there will be a lot of students in there who are going to have their own tech issues. And so just lean into the discomfort. It's okay if it's okay if you are not if you don't have a certificate in Zoom University, it's completely fine. And the other last encouragement that I'm going to say, this is what my Anthrop professor did. I think he's actually the perfect example of formal and informal spaces. In the formal space, he encouraged people to develop their own informal space, which is how our Discord server was born. It was completely student run. And what he understood is he didn't need to be involved in every step of the communication. Like he, for example, was not in the Discord chat. We gave him the link, he had access to the link, he could have invited himself in any time, but he chose not to because his reasoning was he wanted to provide the students some integrity, some privacy. And I think a lot of us took that sort of responsibility to the heart. It really became our pride. It's like, whoa, our professor trusts us so much that we can have this completely crowd monitored space for us to just freely express ourselves. And people, you know, let's say if someone was less shy and they were less willing to speak up in class, they could mention something in Discord chat, and one of their friends could just like, hey, professor, like this is something that was spoken about in our chat. And it provides that sort of like protected communication. A lot of people are, I think, often afraid and intimidated that their professors are going to, you know, try to get back at them because they said something that might have upset the professor. And that's not true, but I think it's a fear, unfortunately, a lot of students have. So having that sort of informal space where you're not involved, having that sort of buffer in communication, I think that will also just go back hand in hand with the previous things we were discussing about, like, how do you know from your students that, you know, how do you assess if your course or if your methods for teaching the course were effective?
Thank you so much. I'm obviously one of the person that introduces too many tools in the classroom. So I'm working on that. I didn't get confused yet. It's gonna happen at some point, I'm sure. But I wanna really like thank you, but before that, also give you the opportunity. You don't have to, but we have a couple of minutes. I wanna make sure that if any of you wanna like say something, you know, kind of like last comments, any other piece of advice, tips in order to close it, I wanna make sure that you have that space and that we have the time to do so. So silence is okay, I know, but I'm just gonna be quiet and let you speak.
I think I just want to remind everyone that you are where you are right now because of your efforts. And, you know, I know for a lot of people, when it comes to moving up and advancing in their life, imposter syndrome kicks in, but like, you know, there's no reason why you should be anxious about where you are because you have done the work, you prepared for it, and you just have to like step into it, you know, move into your destiny. You got it, and good luck.
Yeah, I'll just add to what Sharifa said, like thinking about, you know, the door, like all of you have already, like the people present here, future educators, you've already crossed the threshold. You're already on the other side. You could have all decided to spend your Thursday afternoon doing something else. Like who wants to listen to 3 students? Like whatever, their opinions don't matter. They're little kids. But you chose to come here and sit and listen with us and engage with our conversation. And I think that's really important. And you should give yourself the credit that you deserve. I think what I've seen in academia, seeing some of my mentors, they often, you know, imposter syndrome, it's a really big issue, but also a lot of them often feel very beat down and they are often very, very self-critical. Of course, it's not everyone, but in a lot of the people that I've discussed with, and it's like, you're doing your best. And the last reminder that I'm going to say again is you're doing your best. We are in a once in 100-year pandemic. And I'm telling you, like, unless your students like make an active complaint, like they reach out to authorities, I'm sure you're doing an amazing job. And have faith in yourself because like Sharifa said, you brought yourself over here with all of your hard work and you deserve to stay here.
Well, that was amazing, guys. Thank you. I just wanted to say that self-validation is key. You have to just remind yourselves, you know, all the work that you went through, all the things that you have overcome to get to this point, and how important your job is. And not for you to get stressed about it or anxious about it, just because, you know, it's a great responsibility. No, no. Remember that your students count on you to learn and that at the same time, you can count on your students to learn as well. That even though you might feel anxious or you might feel stressed or anything like that, just remember that everything is going to be well, that enthusiasm is contagious, that empathy is important, that we are all human and we are all different, that we are all going through our own stuff. So one step at a time, and that you're not a machine, you're a human being. So also allow time for yourself to rest, for yourself to just regain energy and come back to the classroom and give your all. And you have prepared for this, so don't doubt on yourself, because you have to be your own fan. So just keep that up, and everything is going to be fine, and your students will love you. So come on, you got this.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I cannot say thank you, gracias, enough. I love that we finished with this fun hearts crying on the chat. It has been a privilege. I don't have enough words to say. I've been so excited. I introduced yourself and I forgot to introduce myself. That's how excited I was for this panel. I really want to say thank you to three of you for sharing all that wisdom, all that experience. We have learned so much. I'm sure that the recording is going to be available on the site soon, and people are going to click and cry together and send you some hearts on social media, in different platforms, informal and formal. And I wish you all the best, the three of you. Mahir, to finish, you're going to be great. Sharifa, that master's is yours. You're going to be great. And Carolina, that needed break for your next step, that is going to be your PhD. So really good luck to all of you, and thank you. Muchas gracias again. Have a beautiful afternoon and have a nice weekend.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.